Hello, hello. Welcome to Loading Mag NUFC. As you can see, doing something a little bit different this time. Huge thanks to Sam for allowing us the opportunity whilst we're in Nottingham, of all places. But as we do on Loading Mag NUFC, we always want to get the lowdown on all the new signings that come into the club. And for you Newcastle United fans, this is the great opportunity to ask questions. And we've got some. So we're going to ask you, Sam, about our new signing, Lloyd Kelly. And first and foremost, we want to know, what are his main strengths as a defender?
He's strong, he's athletic, he's quick. He's the typical Eddie Howe archetypal player, because when he was Bournemouth manager, he always used to sign players of a certain pedigree, and Lloyd Kelly is exactly that. He's really good on the ball. I think he's strong, and it's his pace that is his main thing. What's quite good about him, he can play left back, he can play left centre back as well. So he's very versatile, but he's very much in the Eddie Howe mould. Hard-working player. There's no bells and whistles about him. You don't really see him too much on social media. He's a person that keeps his head down. He clocks in, he does his shift, he clocks out. He's that kind of player. I think Bournemouth fans maybe struggled to warm to him at the start, just because he didn't really show much personality, and we wanted a bit, but then he showed what he can do on the pitch, and that's all we ever want as Bournemouth fans. So yeah, we absolutely love him, but just a really solid player, and someone who I think could certainly compete for a starting berth.
I'd agree. There's a huge sort of debate really going around the Newcastle United fans at the moment. He signed, he's come in, and it's where is he going to play? Some people are saying he's coming in because he can play left centre back. Some people are saying left back because we've seen him last season for Bournemouth play left back and play really well there. In your opinion, where do you think he's best suited? Where does he play his best football?
Really tricky one. I would say probably left back. I mean, he's an excellent understudy for being a left-sided central defender. It all depends who he's got, who's available. Quite often when we were short and short in both positions, he would usually be left back. But I would say that primarily that's where he thrives the most, because he's got an excellent left foot. He bombs up the pitch, he overlaps, he underlaps. Andoni Iraola's system, and previous managers before that, not so much Gary O'Neill, but Eddie Howe, of course, always had this front foot, attacking style of football, like you're witnessing now. And he'd always get up the pitch, and that's Andoni Iraola. There's a reliance on the fullback, so yeah, you'll see him getting up the pitch, putting in some decent crosses. So I would say really primarily left back is where you'll probably be seeing him the most, but don't be surprised if you've got injuries and you need cover. He will slot in absolutely seamlessly. So honestly, yeah, you got a really good player on your hands.
I love it. And versatility, you will know, Newcastle United fans, is that that is one of the things that Eddie Howe looks for in all the players that he signs. Can he play in more than one position? And you've heard from Sam there. He's got the ability to play both. But you think that potentially left back, which is what I think as well. I do think he'll play left back. The things that you've described about Lloyd Kelly, actually, there are similar traits there in a younger version in Lewis Hall.
Yeah.
And I do believe that actually those two competing for that left back berth next season will be a real strength for Newcastle United for sure. Just a few more questions from me before we wrap up. He's come in to a team that is in transition, really, Newcastle United, particularly with its leadership. The likes of Dan Burn has taken the captain's armband. Trippier, there's question marks with, who's been the club captain about his future. Jamal Lascelles, although injured, has had time. Obviously, as the club captain, he's in his last year of his contract. Callum Wilson, the same, for the same reasons. He's been a captain at Bournemouth. What sort of stands out in terms of his leadership traits, because obviously every leader is different?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they say the word captain, they expect them to be really vocal, but I wouldn't say Lloyd's that. He's just a person that leads by example, pretty much. One of the things that just stands out is just his calmness and composure, really, and the fans absolutely adored that. There were times where his calmness translated as being a little bit too pedestrian and almost lazy, but that's just because he's got long legs, he's got a long stride, he's confident in his abilities, so therefore sometimes on the ball he may look a little bit lackadaisical, but he's not. He knows his pace can get him out of jail anyway. But in terms of a captain, he was absolutely superb for us, but One thing that I think troubled him in certain times was, and this was mainly during the Gary O'Neill era, because it was Scott Parker previously that made him captain. I think he was almost being given too much responsibility to sort of like manage other people's games. And as captain, I can imagine that, you know, you're half thinking about your own performance, but you're also thinking, okay, like what's happening with everyone else here? I need to be the manager's like sort of mouthpiece on the pitch. And I think that troubled him a little bit. Okay. And you know, Gary O'Neill, I think you know, ended up taking the captaincy away from him, right, which was, you know, not a bad thing. You know, having that taken away actually helped him out, and, you know, just to concentrate on his own game. And I think with Lloyd, it's one of these things, like, he's a player that you don't know what you've got till he's gone. And when we started to realise that he probably wasn't going to sign that contract, we were hoping he would. But to his credit, he was a professional about it. Unlike a certain Ryan Fraser, when he didn't sign a contract for Bournemouth, the contract dodging Scott, but nothing more about him will be said. But you know, Lloyd was brilliant until the very last kick. So yeah, you know, you're getting a really, you know, player that's really disciplined, cool, calm on the ball, and yeah, just strong as well, you know, aerially strong. He's so physical. There are little kind of YouTube show reels that you can see where he's barging people off the ball, and he's just, yeah, he's built really well, and he's just in the Eddie Howe mould, so he'll be fine.
Well, yeah, I've seen some of those highlight reels, and interestingly, there's quite a few at St James's Park against Newcastle where he's knocking players to the ground, most notably Miguel Almiron. But yeah, so just in short, would you say maybe not captain material, but maybe part of the leadership team?
I would say so. Look, I mean, the good thing about Lloyd Kelly is that he is another like Eddie Howe voice in the changing room. So obviously you've got, you know, Howe, you got Mad Dog Tyndall as you've nicknamed him. Lloyd will be another one of these voices. I mean, you know, Callum Wilson, I'm sure, hopefully he'll still be at Newcastle. I don't know, maybe as an understudy more than anything else next season. But he's another voice that comes from the Eddie Howe mould. So the more you've got, you know, like the more the other players can be convinced that, you know, this is the right way to go about things, because he subscribes to Eddie Howe's rule book. So yeah, you know, I think he's going to be, you know, superb in the dressing room. Like I say, you don't see much from him on social media. We didn't have a song for him, which was absolutely criminal. He was our club captain. He was with us for ages. He's a lad that we signed from Bristol City. And he you know, like when he was young, when he was like 11, he was in foster care. So he's lived a very resilient life, I would say. But, you know, it shows with his hard work and his diligence. And, yeah, you know, like I say, he's been absolutely brilliant for us. And
there was one thing I was going to touch on, actually. But just before I do that, Newcastle fans, you know what to do. We need to make sure we get that chant together for Lloyd Kelly, ready for next season. It seems like he deserves one.
Yeah, he absolutely does. And that's one of the things that we, for some reason, we didn't have a chant, and that. Yeah, that sort of really frustrated me, but we are quite a kind of relaxed fan base in terms of trying to think up songs for players. So there are a few club stalwarts and legends that haven't got one that absolutely should have, and he was one that should have. And I hope to him that didn't translate as being underappreciated, because he really was appreciated. There were a few times where fans got a bit frustrated by, like I say, he looked sometimes a bit lazy on the ball, but that's just his kind of generic style. And we all know how high his ceiling can be, and that's why when you do see performances, I mean, like we were moaning, by the way, at like maybe 6 or 7 out of 10 performances, which, you know, usually you'd accept, because we know that most weeks he can be 8 or 9. So yeah, we will really miss him, and I think he's going to be superb for you.
Just a few more from me. Just we've got a couple of the questions from our loaded boys, Daz and Chris, as well. You just briefly touch on the fact that obviously he's come from foster care. He's had, like you said, a very sort of, he's had to be resilient within his life. Does that help sort of ground him as a person? Just from your observations as a player, has it been noticeable that, you know, he acts or is kind of performing in a certain way?
Yeah, he's very much in the Eddie Howe mould. I would say Eddie's a person that, as you'll have seen, he doesn't let himself get too high, he doesn't let himself get too low. Sometimes you look from him, like for him in the photos in the change room when you're all celebrating a win, it's like, like, where's Eddie? He's at the back, just, he's smiling, but he's not like Mad Dog in the middle, like at the centre of it. So look, he is professional. He will enjoy the moments that he enjoys, but he's just so cool and calm and composed, really. And I think, like I say, that kind of foster care is sort of built up that resilience in him, and he doesn't. I think maybe he finds it hard to connect with like fan bases, perhaps, I don't know, but then they do through the football that he plays, and that's all you want really as a Newcastle United fan.
Definitely, most definitely. I've got a couple of questions from the boys, but just while I go back to them, potential England level?
Yeah, I think Tom on our video of Lloyd Kelly said he wouldn't be surprised that if Lloyd Kelly's a regular starter for Newcastle, which I certainly think he can be, within 12 months he'll be knocking on the door. I think unfortunately Bournemouth are a little bit of an unfashionable club when it comes to being selected by England. I think, for instance, Dom Solanke I think was really harshly left out of the squad, and then the inclusion of Ivan Toney that scored 4 all season. Brentford's win rate was better when he didn't play. Solanke proved it for a whole season, scoring 21 goals in all competitions. And for us, we were thinking, God, like what? Why isn't he being picked here? And in our minds, we were thinking, okay, is Solanke now like maybe thinking I can't do it at Bournemouth? Lloyd, I don't think at Bournemouth there were any real mentions of it. I know he played for the youth and played for the understudy sides for England as they grow up. But I think playing regular Premier League football for a team that should and will be challenging for Europe, I think he'll start to come on the lips now of many more Premier League fans. As Bournemouth players, you've got. We had Nathan Ake, not many people really knew about him, and then Man City pluck him from relative obscurity. Some of their fans were saying, what, we're trying to play from Bournemouth? Like, really? He was 40 million, and look, he's an absolute quality player for them now. So, you know what, just because it's Bournemouth, don't worry about it, because, we were right about Eddie, we were right about Matt Ritchie, we were right about Callum Wilson, we were right about Mad Dog. We'll be right about this.
I'm Ryan Fraser as well.
Yeah, and Ryan Fraser as well. So.
in the not so good ways.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a couple of questions from the lads before we wrap up. Chris has asked the question. He said, if we brought Lloyd Kelly from Bournemouth and he had 3 or 4 years left on his contract, how much do you think Bournemouth would have asked for him?
Good question. I would say about 30 million. If he had 2 years left, 30 million. If he had 3 years left, 35, 40. I think, if you'd asked me the same question a number of years ago, I think we'd be lucky to get like 15 for him. But I think this season he's come into his own a little bit, and Bournemouth fans have started to appreciate him this season. We didn't in previous seasons just because he was like so solid, but now we've been thinking, okay, he could be going now. We're a bit concerned, and rightly so. So I'd probably say about 30 million if he had 2 years left. So yeah, I mean, you're getting a good player for free. That's that's a really good signing.
Most definitely. Saving ourselves 35 million or so is the one thing that Newcastle United have to navigate themselves through with profit and sustainability. We have to try and find those type of signings there. A bit of a tongue-in-cheek question from Daz here, and his question is this. Who's next to pack their bags and join Eddie and Mad Dog in swapping Bournemouth for Newcastle?
I tell you what, that's a really interesting one. I think someone in the mould of Antoine Semenyo. I think someone in the mould of him. Eddie has always liked his sort of young British talent, and I think he's been in the English game for like so long. Obviously, like he doesn't play for England, but he's been around the British game for so long, and I think that he's in the mould of Eddie Howe. If not, it'd be someone like Justin Kluivert. So I think that would probably be the next person, but I'm certainly hoping that doesn't happen.
Yeah, definitely not. I know we were talking about this last night. You kind of mentioned it as a bit of a feeder club, but not from our perspective. I think one thing's clear, just as we wrap this up, is that I think there's a lot of mutual respect between Bournemouth and Newcastle fans. You see it on social media all the time. In a world where fans are always kind of at each other, you don't tend to find that with Newcastle and Bournemouth. There is a mutual respect there, and I would actually say that Bournemouth and in particular yourselves as a channel are the one fans that are sort of, very much respectful, and we reciprocate that as well. So it's definitely not the case. But look, well, it's always good to chat to opposition fans, but even more so yourselves. And look, I think at that point we'll end that there. Really, really interesting insight from yourself, Sam. Thank you very much for taking the time. And check out more on Loaded Mag NUFC. Like, subscribe, and make sure you like and subscribe to Sam, your channel, which is...
It's just go to Back of the Net on YouTube, AFCB podcast on social media, or on YouTube. Just type it in. Hopefully you find us. Press subscribe, and we'll love you forever. Thank you very much.
Definitely, and hopefully we'll see Sam join us on the match previews on away days on Loaded Mag NUFC. We're out of here. How'd you like that?